What's up, everyone? I am the Kaiju no Kami, and this is the list you have been waiting for. My worst movies of 2019 list. I have to tell you, I saw 52 movies over the year, and even though I have not seen everything, I saw a lot of crap. This list was a little bit hard because there were movies I was like, well, I would like this to be on my top 10 worst list, but it's not as bad as this movie on there and that movie on there. So whatever the case may be, these are my top 10 worst movies of 2019.
Number 10.
Kicking off this list is the dumbest movie I watched this year, and that was Dumbo. This movie was dumb. Granted, I'm not really a fan of the animated movie. It's an okay story. I haven't watched it since the days of VHS for a reason. I think the last time I watched it was in like 1991. Wasn't a big fan of it then. Not really a fan of it now, but one day I'll give the animated movie another try. Whatever the case, this live action movie was dumb. Very dumb.
Number 9.
I was very surprised when M. Night Shyamalan gave us Split, because Split was such an enjoyable, entertaining movie, thought-provoking, well done. McAvoy really killed it as the character he was playing. So, when they announced that they were going to do Glass, which was going to take Bruce Willis and Samuel Jackson from Unbreakable and put him together with Legion from Split, I thought, oh, this is going to be amazing. This movie is going to rock. And then when I actually watched it, it was nothing but a bore fest. It was stupid. It was dumb. It was basically The Happening or Signs or all that crap that was just boring ass crap that Shyamalan has done. I have no idea what was going on, but it was like Shyamalan had this movie trilogy of Glass planned and then was like, well, I'm not going to actually get to turn this into a trilogy, so I'm going to throw all these ideas and cram them all into one movie.
Number 8.
I'm not really a fan of the Child's Play series. I like the first one fine, the second one's okay, and then they go kind of off walls from there. Curse was actually pretty decent. Cult was just a disaster. So when there was the remake of Child's Play, I had no expectations for it. I was like, yeah, it's going to be bad. Probably not as bad as I'm thinking, but it's going to be bad. When I watched it, though, it was just boring. And the changes they made, I get what they were doing because they wanted to do something different, but they pretty much just remade Small Soldiers with Chucky because that's all this movie was. It was a rogue AI in a doll that went awry because a programmer got pissed off when he got fired and all that shit. And the death scenes weren't even all that good and they were boring. And that was the biggest thing. This movie was so boring.
Number 7.
Next up, we have another remake on this list, and one that I have not actually seen the original to, which is Pet Sematary. Well, this one started out really good, and then it just went downhill, and all this stuff happened, and didn't have an ending. It was just a lackluster movie overall. It's kind of a shame, because there were 3 Stephen King movies released this year. 2 were 2 of the best movies of the year, and then this happened. Well, I guess this technically happened first, but still. What the hell happened with Pet Sematary?
Number 6.
I don't know what's going on with the Conjuring universe, but holy shit, it seems like every time now studios like, hey, we've got this horror movie, it's not very good, but how can we market this? And then Warner Brothers like, well, why don't we just throw the Conjuring name on it, say it's in the Conjuring universe, boom, there you go. That is what must have happened with The Curse of La Llorona. This movie sucked. I can't even begin to talk about how bad this was. But this Conjuring universe just keeps going downhill as the more movies come out. All 3 Annabelle movies were awful. The Nun was dog shit. And I didn't even think the first Conjuring was all that good. I really liked the second one, but the first one was supposed to be the movie that revived the horror genre. And now the Conjuring movies are pretty much the crapshoot of the horror genre because every other movie now has elevated so much better in the horror genre. Warner Brothers, enough with the Conjuring movie bullshit. Move on, do something else. Stop putting The Conjuring on your movies that are just crap.
Number 5.
Men in Black International had a lot of potential, and it dropped the ball on all of it. This movie sucked. This movie was also boring. This movie was garbage. This movie made no sense from an editing perspective. The way things were done, like when these 2 aliens were dancing, was just utterly ridiculous, just for the sake of being utterly ridiculous. I don't know if that was supposed to be intentional or on purpose, whatever the case may be. It was just awful. And the plot was as predictable as can be. You knew what was going to happen before it happened, and Chris Hemsworth felt more like he was hindering the movie than helping it. I wasn't even a big fan of the original Men in Black movie, which is why this is the only sequel I've watched from it, and I regret it now. Do not make the mistake I did, and do not watch this movie.
Number 4.
What can I say about Hellboy that hasn't already been said in other reviews? It sucked. It didn't make any sense. It had no sense of pacing. It never had any downtime so the audience could actually think about what they just watched and what was going on, because it moved to the next thing and then the thing after that. None of it worked. I feel like when they were making this movie, everyone was like, hey, let's have a contest here. Who can be the worst actor in this movie? Which is saying something considering Mila Jovovich was in this film. David Harbour, who should have been great as Hellboy, was awful. His partner was awful. However, Ian McShane, hands down, takes the cake for being the worst actor. He was a horrible father to Hellboy. John Hurt was so much better in the Del Toro movies. He actually felt like the character from the comics compared to what Ian McShane did. McShane just phoned it in. He gave this half-ass. It was all this horrible exposition that sounded like Ian McShane was bored out of his mind when he was doing this exposition. And overall, the whole movie made no sense. It apparently does one of the last arcs of the Hellboy saga, which also doesn't make sense, because why would you adapt the last arc or one of the last arcs of the series if you haven't actually properly done the previous stuff? And where was Abe Sapien? Oh wait, this is before they met Abe Sapien, which makes no sense.
Number 3.
You know what the difference is between X-Men The Last Stand and X-Men Dark Phoenix? At least you can have fun with how bad The Last Stand is because of how poorly written it is, but it's still a fun bad type movie. Dark Phoenix, on the other hand, was boring as all hell. You cannot have any fun with how bad it is. It makes no sense. It's rushed. It feels like a whole trilogy crammed into one movie. Sophie Turner continues to be a horrible iteration of Jean Grey. Magneto's in it, even though he served no purpose at all during the movie. Nightcrawler goes on a murdering spree at one point with his tail, which is completely unlike Nightcrawler. And also, they wear their costumes at the beginning of the movie for the first mission, and that's it. They're plainclothes superheroes for the rest of the movie. And the villains had no character development whatsoever. They were kind of just there just to be there. The only reason this movie is not number 1 is because I had no expectations for this movie. In fact, I saw it on Blu-ray 2 weeks ago from the library. So I didn't even pay to see this. I just borrowed it, and that's what I saw.
Number 2.
The Lion King was actually my least favorite movie of the year for a long time. It was a horrible rendition. The songs did not fit with the realistic effects they were doing. The character emotions did not fit with the realistic effects they were doing. This CGI that they wanted to do to make everything realistic just hindered the movie. Simba sounds like he is crying his eyes out, but there's no tears, there's no sad face. It was just... And that's it. Every time it was like, your dad died. Our kingdom's under attack. Scar reveals he killed your father. The land is now yours. It was horrible. And now apparently, even though Disney was advertising it as a live-action movie, now they're backtracking and have submitted it for Best Animated Features and award shows, which is bullshit because they know it would not win anything else, so they're doing animated because they're banking on the realistic aspect of making the movie win stuff, but hopefully it doesn't work. This movie was utter garbage. Such an insult to the original animated movie, which is so much better. It doesn't help that everyone in this movie was just reading the old movie script, even though the lines were not written for their movie. The only reason this is an honorable mention or a dishonorable mention is because it's not officially a movie. It's a TV series that was aired as a movie, and it would be hands down the worst movie of the decade if it was a movie, and that is the new adaptation of A Christmas Carol. If you want to know why it's shit, just check out my quickie review. Do not watch this movie or TV series, whatever you want to consider it. Ugh!
Number 1.
Ugh. And the worst movie of 2019 for me is Star Wars: Rise of Skywalker. It was the movie equivalent of Game of Thrones Season 8. It's like Abrams crammed 2 movies into one. Most of it was like damage control the movie and then the ending to his saga. None of it made sense. It was a rush mess. The opening crawl was this convoluted gibberish, which apparently you need to play Fortnite to be able to access the message that was talked about there. There was no pacing whatsoever, and it was one giant fetch quest after another. It was as if you were playing this trading quest in a Zelda game or a Final Fantasy game, or hell, the Elder Scrolls and Fallout games where you have to go from boom, ba-doom, 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 ba-doom. It doesn't help that Finn is hands down the most mistreated Star Wars character in history. He had so much potential in Episode 7, and then they did absolutely nothing with him here so that they could promote the Mary Sue that is Rey. I probably would not have been so hard on Rise of Skywalker if it had not been the ending to the trilogy, had not felt like it was 2 movies crammed into one, did not feel like they were just trying to make up for what the last movie messed up on. They should have just did episodes 9 and 10. They should have just said, you know what, it's no longer going to be a trilogy, it's going to be a quadrilogy, because we done fucked up. We can no longer fit the story we wanted in 3 movies, so we're going to have to do it 4, so we're sorry, but now this will be 4 movies. That's all they had to do, but nope, it has to be a trilogy, so we're going to cram 2 movies into 1. What do you think the worst movie of 2019 is? Let me know in the comments. Click like, click subscribe, click the bell notification, click whatever else YouTube has you clicking on to support me. You can support me on Patreon at Kaiju no Kami, Twitter Kaiju no Kami, Facebook Kaiju no Kami, and my website creativitybydesignllc.com. Until next time, bye.